I'm an internal student of deep natural history. What does it mean? What does deep natural history mean? Well, natural history is the study of nature from the perspective of space and time. I like to understand this from understanding what life forms and landforms do, which have lived for millions and billions of years, or landforms that have existed for billions or millions of years. Let me take you through a quick journey of what I mean. 750 million years ago, that's about 4.2 billion years ago when the Earth was formed. So in perspective of that, this is just 750 million years ago. What had happened was that India was here. This yellow star that you notice, that's where India is. It's covered by ice and snow. And Greenland, this red star here, is the one that is a tropical paradise. Think about this. 750 million years ago, the conditions of both these land masses was entirely switched. Let's move to a time at, say, around 752 million years to 749 million years. Those 3 million years were very critical because this is the time when all life on Earth was single-celled. All creatures until now were unicellular. But 750 million years ago, there was a massive volcanic event that actually triggered all life to turn multicellular. Let's move 500 million years later. This is the period called the Permian. This is the time when India is now ensconced between Antarctica, Arctic, Madagascar, Africa. It's wedged between these land masses, and it is a tropical paradise. There's no ice. This is the time when the amphibians rule land. They've just taken over the world from the insects, and this is the time when all the coal and the petrol and the lignite that we have in India, in Australia, and Antarctica that has formed. Why is this important? Because this is the time when Earth is most productive. It has produced plants and animals that are large, and they are the ones that actually contribute to a massive biomass turnover that has created all life on Earth that we see today. All the life families that we have around us today have started to be created at this time. Let's move to a time 200 million years later. And this is the time when India has separated from its neighbors Australia, Antarctica, Madagascar, and Africa. India's created a space where the Indian Ocean is getting created to its west, and to the east, the Indian Ocean has started to get created from the deep sea activity that is happening under the islands of Andamans and Indonesia. You'll notice that Indonesia and Andamans are still not created, but there's massive amount of volcanic activity that is taking place here, as well as on the west coast of the Indian plate. These two volcanic activities would push India at great speeds, and as India has moved and pushed forward, it would go and collide with Eurasia and create the world's largest and the tallest and the mightiest mountains, the Himalayas. And north of the Himalayas are the Tibetan Plateau. Together, these two land masses would define the weather systems, the climate patterns for the next 50 million years we see as it is today. What happens between this place, what would be, say, Shanghai today, and Gibraltar here, is a thin, narrow sea which is called the Tethys. This would become the laboratory, the innovation center for all mammals to rise. All great mammal species would emerge in this space. Now, what is incredible about this time is the speed at which the model world is getting assembled. India would make sure that the rise of the Himalayas, the creation of the Tibetan Plateau, would determine the climatic systems, the air circulation system, the oceanic currents. And if you notice, there's still no ice over Antarctica. In fact, there's no Arctic at all. And all these would get created gradually. The great monsoons of East Asia, the Indian monsoons, the African monsoons, and the monsoons of the South America are yet to form. I want you now to take a look at this odd piece of rock. It's got these concentric lines on it, and what it does is it's basically a collection of microbes. In fact, not one single microbe, perhaps 3 or 4. This is perhaps one of the most enduring and lasting and among the oldest fossils that you will find anywhere in the world. This is from a place called Sonbhadra, and this kind of fossil is called a stromatolite. A stromatolite, like I said, is a partnership of microbes that came together to exploit a single chemical, but also supported a partner microbe to produce what we know as photosynthesis. Now, when these creatures emerged 3.5 billion years ago, and they dominated the scene till about 750 million years ago, they were the largest colonies of any life that you could notice. They were large stones, they looked like toadstools or something which was circular, and they dotted the places where land met the sea. So imagine that lakes and rivers and seas of the ancient times being dotted by these creatures that would eventually get fossilized, and we would see them as what we call stromatolites. Now, stromatolites would produce so much oxygen that it would cause the earth to freeze. Remember the image that I showed you first when India was covered by snow and ice? Well, it was conspired by this unicellular creatures that came together to produce all the free oxygen that we breathe today. Also remember that the oxygen that we breathe today, or the metal oxides and all the minerals that exist today, were created by the force of this creature. The reason why I show you this fossil is because this is one of those creatures that not only spurred evolution, but also caused extinction of other microbes that were entirely dependent on gases that were like carbon dioxide or sulfuric acid or hydrosulfuric oxides. It produced so much oxygen that it caused the world to cool and created metal oxides and new minerals. This perhaps is the greatest source of an example in which organism has caused evolution and spurred the movement of forward evolution. But in case of the other creatures, there's no other creature as powerful as this. And I want to give you 4 takeaways from what I imagine to be the most powerful things when it comes to natural history. We are noticing something that is phenomenal at this time. We are seeing that humans have made an incredible and deep impact on global evolution. We have altered landscapes. We have caused massive extinctions, massive localized extinctions. We've taken out chemicals from ores and we've left behind the waste for organisms to digest, assimilate, and treat. But organisms don't have that ability anymore because organisms do not evolve at the speed at which we operate. Organisms takes millions and billions of years to evolve, and the waste that we create is something that organisms cannot deal with. So what eventually happens is that the waste that we create, the synthetic organisms, the synthetic chemicals that we create, both of these leave behind a waste which no physical chemical process can digest. As a result, I have 4 takeaways from what deep natural history can tell you in terms of how to deal with the complex problems of climate change and the ecological disasters that we face today. My first takeaway is very provocative, and you need to read this with a little bit of caution. The first is this, that to fix all the excess carbon that we've taken from deep earth, it's going to take more than just trees. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, we take carbon in the form of fuels, in form of petrol, in form of coal. We take it from deep earth, which has taken millions and billions of years to make. And what happens is that we take it out within weeks, And within months, we start consuming it. And within hours, as we ignite our cars or run our engines, it's up in the air, right? So all that carbon dioxide is up in the air. What happens then is that we imagine that the trees will consume the excess carbon dioxide and it's going to fix the problem. Well, that's really not going to happen because trees are selfish. They produce oxygen which they're going to consume the next day. The most efficient oxygen provider or producer are microbes. Trees by themselves do not produce enough oxygen to sustain life. Trees, in fact, are a problem currently because, as you notice, there are fires that are happening all around the world. Forest fires like the one in 2023 in Canada produced so much carbon dioxide that it was equal or in fact exceeded that of the India's emissions of that year. So think about it. There's Arctic that is burning. Then you have fires in Canada. You have fires in Patagonia. We had fires in the Himalayas earlier this year. So what happens when all these fires emerge and they emit all the carbon, releasing it suddenly? So it's not just the trees that are burning, but there's soil carbon that is an equivalent amount that is releasing the carbon dioxide. So trees may not be your option. Second, we need to conserve landscapes. Now, why do I say this? Landscapes are critical because they are not pieces of just rock and soil. They are actually a collection of minerals which are interconnected. Mineral cycles are critical in maintaining the force by which life occurs on Earth. Let me show you an example. Now, as you notice, there is a piece of a wafting dust that is moving from the Sahara into the Caribbean Sea and into the Amazon. The Amazon is deficient in phosphorus and iron and other free elements. Where does it get its nutrition? It's from the dust of the Amazon, right? Similarly, if you were to look at the Western Ghats of India, where do they get their nutrition from? It's largely from the dust that comes from Africa and the Horn of Africa and the Arabian desert. The typical thing here is that we imagine that distant landscapes are not related. But the fact of the matter is that tropical forests, because of the high amount of precipitation, generally do not have a high amount of free minerals that can drive their growth. And as a result, we have to see distant landscapes like these to be as being interconnected. The third thing I want to talk to you about is a very important aspect. When I told you about trees, the important aspect is that trees need to produce carbon dioxide, but we now need to put that carbon back deep into the earth because we are getting our energy from petrol or lignite or coal from deep earth. So that carbon needs to go deep into the earth. We are leaving all our carbon on the surface if we do tree planting, right? Like in the Canadian fires. So the operating word is that we need to put carbon back deep into the earth. And for this, we need the power of microbes. Here's a story. Until 1980s, we were not even aware that the microbes are the largest photosynthetic engine in the world. They are not trees. Trees are not the biggest photosynthesizer. It's the microbe. And in particular, this microbe called Prochlorococcus, which was discovered in the mid-1980s, is the champion. It's the Amitabh Bachchan, it's the Tendulkar of the microbial world. It alone captures anything between 5 to 11% of all the carbon in the world and releases an equivalent amount of oxygen. Trees, like I said, are very, very selfish. They will consume that same oxygen the next day. The beauty of microbes is they are quick, their life cycles are short, they grow rapidly, produce oxygen and die and instantly sink into the sea, bearing the carbon. My final point is that there is a huge amount of ethical conflict of interest when it comes to climate change. We've got oil companies and coal companies that are leading the discussions. The perverse incentives for them to continue doing business remains a major block in advancing scientific and evidence-based interventions that could actually help reverse climate change. So thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to your support in reversing climate change and taking forward the agenda of making a better world. Thank you.